Hey guys, we are going to talk about the lesson from Thursday, January 4th. And today, what we talked about in class was making sure that we were not mistaking our negative signs. Basically, when we have these problems, when they have lots of steps, it's important that we pay attention to every negative, to every operation to make sure that we're not making a mistake that feels little, but then actually costs us tons of points. So we'll take a look at the guided practice from today and this sort of interesting new way that we're setting up our excuse me, our problems to make sure that we're not missing any integers. So first thing I want to do is I want to rewrite this. When I rewrite a problem, I do not like to have the mixture of decimals and fractions. I like to decide, am I going to use decimals or am I going to use fractions? In this case, I'm going to stick with fractions because 7.5 easily becomes 7.5 and 0.25 easily becomes 1/4. So these are going to be fractions that I can work with without too much trouble. So I'm going to rewrite it negative 7 1/2 divided by 1/4 plus 3 3/4. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is divide. I have negative 7.5 divided by 1/4. A negative divided by a positive is going to give me a negative. So I know my sign is going to be negative, and I'm using division here. Because I want to make sure that I stay organized, the O is very, very important of the mole, the O of the mole, whenever we're dealing with integers especially. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to write negative 7 1/2 divided by 1/4. Okay, so I'm going to turn this into an improper fraction. I will have negative 15 over 2 divided by 1/4. I'm going to leave it 15 over 2, change it to multiplication, and then flip over my second fraction. If we are struggling with fraction operations, please let me know. This video is not reteaching that, but I want to make sure that if you're struggling, you talk to me about that. Negative, so 15 times 4, I know this is going to be negative because a negative times a positive, again, is negative. 15 times 4 is going to give me 60 over 2. 60 over 2 is equal to, sorry, negative 60 over 2 is equal to negative 30. All right, cool. So I'm going to go back here, and now I have a much prettier problem. I have negative 30 plus 3 3/4. Okay. Now I have a decision to make about whether or not my answer is going to be negative or positive. Because the negative 30 has a higher absolute value, meaning it's further away from the 0 than the 3 3/4, my answer is going to be negative, okay? And I'm adding, but I'm finding the difference. I'm finding the difference between 30 and 3 3/4, okay? So I'm going to do that over here. And in order to do that, let me go over here. I'm going to take negative 30. I'm going to turn it into, I'm actually going to borrow, so it's a fraction, negative 29 and 4/4 minus, I'll give that 3 and 3/4. Okay. I can like just subtract like I normally would. 4 minus 3, 1/4. 29 minus 3 is 26. And I know that my answer is going to be negative. So my answer here is negative 26 and 1/4. Again, the decisions I made were, is this going to be negative or positive? So let's see if I can get a different color here. The first step here was deciding that the negative divided by a negative would give me a negative. The next step was deciding that the absolute value of the negative number was higher than the absolute value of the positive number. And in addition, that means, well, we're going to have a negative answer. Now it is addition, but again, I have to find the difference when I have canceling, right? So the 3 3/4 is canceling out some of that negative 30. So I went over here and I subtracted. If you have any questions, please, please, please write them down. Let me know, put them on your homework, and have a great evening.